Hello everyone and welcome back to another Back Log Banter movie review. My name is Tucker Hazel and this is my wingman, Tanner Dykstra, and today we are here to talk about the long-awaited Top Gun legacy sequel, Top Gun Maverick. And if you are a Top Gun fan, we definitely want to hear your thoughts on this movie in the comments or in our Discord. The link is in the top of the description. And also, you can subscribe to this channel, you can ring the bell, you can like the video. You're going to want to do that because we're going to be reviewing a lot of movies this summer. And you're going to want to be on board this train, this hype train. Tanner,
yes,
you are the biggest Top Gun fan that I know. And I'm very excited to finally get a chance to see a movie of this caliber in the theater. Give me your thoughts on a base level.
Base level thoughts. I mean, Top Gun Maverick is pretty astounding. It is a must-see theater experience. Coming from my standpoint, it far surpasses its predecessor. 36 years on. Mm-hmm. It is incredible that this movie is as dynamic as it is. Feels as fresh as it does coming as a sequel 36 years later. Tom Cruise is as good as he's ever been. Jennifer Connelly is as good as she's ever been. The action is fantastic. The aviation is, of course, fantastic in this, and capturing all that on camera. It is incredible.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I'm astounded myself to be saying that, because I watched the first Top Gun with you a couple days ago for the first time, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. I was impressed by the technical aspects of the aviation, but I wasn't blown away, and I think that maybe is just because as a person who had not seen it before, it was a little bit harder to go back to an 80s movie that was technically impressive for the time, but I've seen action movies that are a lot more dynamic, a lot more larger scale, better technology, and that's what we got. That's what we get here. This movie is what the original Top Gun wanted to be. And I think that it makes it, honestly, blow the first one out of the water in basically every regard, in my opinion. I still think the first one is important. I think the two of these work very well together, but mostly because of the emotional beats that the first one sets up. The death of Goose. That Iceman and Maverick have a rivalry. That's the stuff you need to know going in to really feel the full emotional weight here. But I really do think that this one is just leagues above the first in almost every regard. I think that the cast is better. I was more compelled by his love interest because I like Jennifer Connelly a lot. I thought that the emotional beats hit a little harder. I was more compelled by Maverick's character arc, and this movie, above all else, it feels so much more focused. There is one goal of this movie, and they thoroughly explain it, and you know exactly what everything's leading to. You feel the stakes, you feel the tension, and when you finally get to that insane last act of the film, you are locked in from minute zero. And that's why I'm so impressed by this movie.
Yes. I will say, we'll do spoiler-free up top for a while, but if you want to go in completely blind, well, we'll give you a spoiler mark when we get to that point.
I think we should start by talking about the expanded cast, because this movie brings back two of the actors from the original, Tom Cruise playing the classic character Top Gun. No, he's playing Pete Maverick Mitchell, and also Val Kilmer returns as Iceman. But aside from that, we get an entirely new cast of characters, and I think that they're all done very well. I was so much more invested in this large cast of characters than I was the accomplices of Pete Mitchell from the first one.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Tucker, when we got introduced to all these characters, there's a scene in the bar towards the beginning where you're like, all right, here are our Top Gun students. I'm like, okay, we're introducing, the new class. I was a little apprehensive of, A, how much of these people are we going to get, and B, how good are they going to be? And I think that they all have plot importance, have character importance, and I think that's perfectly balanced as well. All these new people are great. They, I love the sort of rivalry that Hangman and Brewster have.
Yeah, and I think it's really the strength of all these actors that makes them so compelling. I mean, even the characters that are in those bit parts, you do get to know their personalities, their relationships to the larger importance of their roles very well. And by the end, I was absolutely invested in all of them. And it comes down to Miles Teller being an amazing actor, and this being one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances of all time. And all of these roles down the list I really thought were filled excellently, especially with the supporting cast that we didn't even mention. Not the Top Gun pilots, but their admirals and their
John Hamm. Yeah, Tucker, should we talk about the man himself, Tom Gunn?
Tom Gunn. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him.
Tom Cruise is fantastic in this movie, obviously. Not only in those dramatic moments, but, making the audience feel the weight of pushing 10 G's in a fighter jet. He poured his heart and soul into this. Yeah, he's great, obviously.
Yeah, I think that you're right in that it's those small moments that really sell his performance and make him one of my favorite performances of his. It's watching him in the cockpit of emoting what it would be like to be in this situation that makes you very impressed by this character, by this situation that Tom Cruise is portraying. I also think that it comes down to the situation that he's put in, having to be the teacher that he was so pushing against back in the original. It's a fun inversion of that character, as well as dealing with, still 30 years later, the loss of Goose and how that's impacting him and impacting his relationship to aviation and teaching and Rooster and all these things that make this a much stronger emotional core than you got in that first one. When you lose Goose in the first one, you're like, man, okay, there are stakes, but that happens obviously before this one. So you are feeling that weight of grief and possible danger throughout the entire course of the film. And so every time you get into a situation where someone could get hit by a missile or their plane could crash or something could go wrong, you think you could lose them. And it really made it emotionally wrenching for me to watch these scenes where I cared about these characters and I felt like there was a chance that we could lose one of them at any moment.
Yeah. I also love his conflict, concerning Rooster. He seeks advice from the other people in the film, including Jennifer Connelly, who I think is very good in a supporting role here. Her character, Penny Benjamin, gets name dropped in the first film. And there's like cute allusions to that. And obviously they're very fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of how Jennifer Connelly was used in this movie. I think that maybe what people are missing of why she's a core element of this film is it's giving Maverick someone to relate to on an adult experienced level. Everyone around him is either his superior or his inferior, and giving him someone that's on his level to talk to through these serious moments and explain his emotions to allows you to connect a lot stronger to the emotional core of Pete Mitchell and learn about his grief and his worries that we didn't really get a chance to in the first movie.
Yeah, his insecurities for sure as well, taking on this new role and having to push the limits of himself and the students that he's teaching.
Yeah.
Should we just talk about how great the flying is in this? Yeah. I mean, I touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but these jets are doing barrel rolls. They are skimming the ocean and the salt flats of California, and the aviation, the skill of the actors and the real pilots that they filmed for this film really cements in your mind what Top Gun Maverick is trying to tell you is there is no substitute for a great pilot in the cockpit of one of those planes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's the editing and the scope of these shots that really sells that truth of the skill of these pilots. The fact that we are able to get, because of modern technology, these wide shots of these planes that are perfectly choreographed and perfectly framed with actors in front of them or behind a mountain, or crazy, insanely wide shots that are gorgeous to look at and incredibly well choreographed with actual planes. That's what really blows my mind about this movie and makes it, I think, up there of one of the great action movies, because it's just so impressive the amount of time that they spent and amount of time that gets on screen of you are just watching these planes do these insane things that they actually had to do. It's one of the movies where you don't feel like there's CGI, and of course there is in places.
Yes.
But it feels so visceral because they are leaning so heavily on the actual skill of actual pilots and the footage they filmed of them doing these insane fucking things, and the stunts that involve multiple planes, as you were saying, but also multiple planes with missiles and explosions and environment that's so close to them. You feel like their wings are gonna chop off the top of trees, and it's that viscerality and speed through the editing that really makes it so impressive.
It's no surprise. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be a 10 out of 10 as well. You and I are very united today, and I'm impressed that I was able to give a movie a 10 out of 10. That doesn't happen for me very frequently, but when I finish this film and I'm coming off the insane highs of 35 minutes of that last action sequence that just keeps going, I'm like, this is one of the most impressive pieces of filmmaking I've ever witnessed. And it's not only that the action is some of the most impressive I've ever seen, but I'm also incredibly invested in these characters and impressed by the actors portraying these roles, and of course by the fact that this is what legacy sequels should do. This feels important. Exploring Maverick's trauma 30 years later, putting him into the role of teacher. This is a perfect complement to that first one that can't be told unless you have a reverence for that first film, a reverence for that style of filmmaking, a respect for Tony Scott's work, Tom Cruise as an actor, looking back on how he's grown. This is an important piece of filmmaking.
Yeah. And as a paramour of the golden god of American action cinema, that Tom Cruise is the reason this movie got made, and it is wholly evident. But his sharing of the talent and the acknowledgement of all these other people that worked with him on this film, he pops up at the beginning, at least he did at our show, where he's like, "Thank you so much for coming out to support this film. I want to thank all these other people, all these talented pilots, all these talented actors, all this talented crew that worked on this film."
Yep.
Tom Cruise just has a reverence for American filmmaking that is visceral in Top Gun Maverick. So, with that being said, go see Top Gun Maverick. You owe it to yourself to go see this film. Full spoilers from here on out. Something that I was dancing around earlier, but I didn't want to say because it is a spoiler, is Iceman's involvement in the film.
Yep.
Because towards the beginning, Maverick is texting him, and it's just little text bubbles on screen. I'm like, okay, I get it. Val Kilmer, he's had some medical issues. He's aged, and he's had some issues, and he didn't want to come back maybe in person for this film, but he does, and it is a key scene in which he helps Maverick sort of overcome some of his insecurities, namely about I am stuck between a rock and a hard place with Rooster. If I don't send him, he'll never forgive me. If I do send him, he's probably going to die. What do I do here? How can I respect my best friend's legacy with his son? And I just love that. I love that involvement.
Yeah, my thoughts on Iceman is that they used him so tastefully. I mean, I'm very glad that they were able to get him back for this.
Yeah, we need to talk about the final, like you said, 35-minute action finale.
Yes.
Which is absolutely insane. Up until this point in the film, we've been saying, okay, you gotta go in, we have to basically Death Star this nuclear reactor thing that's underground in not Russia. They never say the name of the country that they're going to. And you think that's gonna be it.
Yep.
But nay. It is Pete Maverick Mitchell that gets shot down.
Yep.
And I was mouth agape in the theater when this happened.
But the fact that we were able to transition this from the high-octane sequence that we've been building to the entire time and pull it out for 2 more layers of action finale is what really blows me away by this movie. Is like they didn't just stop at the holy crap, I can't believe they did this. They took it even further.
We joked in the theater, it's like a Metal Gear action sequence. They're sneaking into this blown-up Russian runway and stealing a 30-year-old fighter plane out of a hangar. It is chef's kiss in every single way.
I do think that after that, it's kind of a Hollywood ending. It feels like, hey, we put in the work of these insane action sequences. There's not going to be any final twist. This is just a wholesome ending for these characters, and I think that's okay. I think the optimism that Top Gun Maverick has and reverence for these characters doesn't necessarily take it to any dark places, and that's fine by me. I mean, I maybe it would have been slightly more interesting or subversive if they had ended it with some final twist that did feel more material to the plot, but we wrap it up in a satisfying way, and I think that coming off of 35 plus minutes of some of the most incredible action I've ever seen, that feels absolutely earned.
I think this film handles it referencing the first film very well because it all is plot important, but it does give you there are some parallels going on here with the beach scenes and the buzzing the tower and the stuff like that. But none of it ever feels ham-fisted.
Sure.
It always feels like a nudge and a wink, like, hey, we're doing the thing again. We know you love this. It's iconic. Yeah.
What I was saying earlier about this feeling like an important legacy sequel applies to that as well. Like it is tasteful in the way that it references the original and feels like a compliment in that way. This is one of the biggest gaps we've ever seen between sequels, period, without any continuation of the franchise. This is the second entry.
Yes.
And it also feels like the closing of a chapter. And I do kind of feel like it would be nice for this to be the end. I wouldn't...
Yeah,
I would watch sequels. I would watch continuations of these
of
characters.
Course.
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I don't
Top Gun New Class or something like that.
Top Gun Hangman, Top Gun
Yeah,
Rooster,
exactly.
Top Gun Bob. Let's get them all
Top
out
Gun
there.
Bob.
Yes. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching this elated review of Top Gun Maverick. The movie summer is starting off strong, and we are going to be here for all of those releases. So thank you for watching, and we will see you guys in more reviews.